The invitation to the party came with a wave of enthusiasm from my husband. He was eager, almost glowing with anticipation as he described the evening to me, a gathering of old friends he hadn't seen in years. His excitement was contagious, and though I wasn't as familiar with his social circle, I agreed without hesitation. In the days leading up to the event, he couldn't stop talking about it. Stories of shared adventures with his friends filled our evenings, and I saw a side of him that was animated and carefree. It was nice to see him like this, to share in his excitement, even if I felt a little out of place. I knew I'd be stepping into a world where everyone already knew each other, where connections were long established, and I was merely a visitor. On the day of the party, I made an effort to look my best. I wanted to match his excitement, to show him I was just as invested in this evening as he was. I chose an elegant dress, applied makeup with care, and styled my hair in a way I knew he liked. He noticed, giving me a warm smile and a quick kiss before we left the house. As we arrived, I was struck by how grand the setting was. The host's home was sprawling, with immaculate decor and a sense of effortless sophistication. My husband was immediately at ease, slipping seamlessly into the crowd. He greeted everyone warmly, moving from group to group with the ease of someone who belonged there. I stayed close to him at first, listening as he introduced me to his friends. They were polite, offering smiles and small talk, but it was clear they were more interested in catching up with him than engaging with me. That was fine. I was happy to observe, to let him enjoy his night. The party grew livelier as the evening went on. People laughed loudly, shared old stories, and raised their glasses in toast after toast. My husband seemed in his element, more vibrant than I'd seen him in months. I was glad he was happy, even if I felt a little like a spectator. There were moments, though, where I felt a pang of discomfort. My husband's interactions with some of the women felt different. They weren't overtly inappropriate, but there was a familiarity, a lingering glance here, a hushed tone there that made me pause. I brushed it off at first, convincing myself I was overthinking things. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling entirely. It wasn't jealousy, I trusted him completely, but there was something about the way he moved through the room, the way he seemed so at home in a world that was foreign to me, that left me feeling a little lost. I sipped my drink and tried to push the thoughts away, focusing instead on blending in and supporting him. After all, this night was important to him, and I didn't want to ruin it. As the evening unfolded, I began to notice things I hadn't before. My husband, who had always been attentive and warm, seemed different tonight. It wasn't that he was ignoring me outright. He'd check in occasionally, offering me a drink or asking if I was enjoying myself. But his focus wasn't on me. It was scattered across the room, always drawn back to one person. She was one of his friends, someone he'd introduced me to earlier. Her name was Claire, and she was stunning. Confident, poised, with a laugh that seemed to light up the room. She moved through the party like she owned it, and people gravitated toward her, my husband included. First, I didn't think much of it. They'd been friends for years, and it was natural for them to catch up. But as the minutes turned into hours, I noticed the small things. The way his eyes lingered on her as she spoke. The way their conversations seemed more animated, more intimate, than the ones he had with anyone else. I tried to shake off the unease, telling myself I was reading too much into it. Yet the little moments kept piling up. When she laughed, he laughed harder. When she moved to another group, his gaze would follow her briefly before he caught himself. And then there was the time they stood together by the bar, leaning in close, their voices low. It felt like they were in their own world, and I was just an outsider looking in. I tried to distract myself, mingling with other guests and making small talk. But it was hard to focus when my mind kept drifting back to them. Each time I glanced in their direction, I saw something that made my stomach tighten. A touch on the arm, a shared smile, a moment of eye contact that lasted a beat too long. At one point, I walked over to join them, hoping to insert myself into the conversation and ease my growing discomfort. They greeted me warmly enough, but the dynamic didn't change. If anything, I felt like a third wheel. The connection between them was palpable, almost electric, and it left me feeling invisible. The more I observed, the more questions swirled in my mind. Was I imagining things? Was this just harmless fun between old friends? Or was there something more, something neither of them was acknowledging but couldn't quite hide? I didn't want to confront him, not here, not now. This was supposed to be his night, a chance for him to reconnect with people he cared about. But the weight of my suspicions was growing, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. I felt trapped in a room full of people, yet completely alone, my thoughts drowning out the laughter and music around me. The tipping point came when I decided to step outside for some air. The weight of the evening had become too much, and I needed a moment to gather myself. As I walked back in, I caught sight of them in a quiet corner of the room. They were standing close, their heads tilted toward each other in what seemed like an intense conversation. His hand rested lightly on her arm, and she didn't pull away. For a moment I froze. The scene in front of me felt surreal, like something out of a nightmare. My mind raced, trying to rationalize what I was seeing. Maybe it was innocent. Maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, a voice whispered that I wasn't. I couldn't hold back any longer. I approached them, my heart pounding in my chest. As I got closer, they noticed me, and the way they instantly stepped apart spoke louder than any words could. My husband's expression was a mix of surprise and guilt, while Claire tried to mask her unease with a smile. "I think we need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. He nodded, glancing at Claire before turning back to me. "Of course. Let's step outside." The air was cool and crisp, but it did little to calm the storm brewing inside me. I turned to face him, my emotions finally spilling over. "What's going on? You've been acting strange all night, and I can't ignore it anymore. Is there something you need to tell me?" His initial response was denial. "Nothing's going on. You're overthinking this. Claire and I are just friends, that's all." But his words lacked conviction, and the defensiveness in his tone only fueled my anger. "Friends don't act like that," I said, my voice rising. "I've been watching you all night, the way you look at her, the way you talk to her. Do you think I'm blind?" For a moment he said nothing, his silence more damning than any confession. Then he sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Look, you're making this into something it's not. Yes, we've always been close, but it doesn't mean anything." I stared at him, searching his face for the truth. But all I saw was someone trying to downplay what he couldn't deny. "Do you even hear yourself? You're minimizing this like it's nothing, but it's not nothing to me. Do you have any idea how humiliating it's been to stand there, watching you act like I don't exist?" His eyes softened for a moment, and I thought I saw a flicker of regret. "I never meant to make you feel that way," he said quietly. "I'm sorry if I hurt you. But it wasn't enough. Sorry wasn't going to erase what I'd seen, what I'd felt. The betrayal might not have been physical, but it cut just as deeply. For the first time I realized that trust, once broken, could never fully be repaired. The ride home was suffocating. Silence hung in the air between us, heavy and oppressive. I stared out the window, replaying the events of the evening in my mind, searching for clarity. He didn't try to speak, perhaps knowing that anything he said would only make things worse. Once we got home, I headed straight to the bedroom, shutting the door behind me. I needed space, a moment to breathe, to process everything that had happened. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions: anger, sadness, confusion. But above all, there was an overwhelming sense of betrayal. I sat on the edge of the bed, trying to make sense of my feelings. Had I been naive? Had I ignored signs that were always there? Or had this been the first crack in what I thought was a solid foundation? The doubts gnawed at me, each one cutting deeper than the last. He eventually knocked on the door, his voice tentative. "Can we talk?" I hesitated before opening it. He stood there, looking more vulnerable than I'd ever seen him. "I know I messed up," he said, his voice low. "I didn't mean for tonight to go the way it did. I wasn't thinking." "That's the problem," I replied, my tone sharper than I intended. You weren't thinking. Not about me, not about us. He stepped inside, taking a seat across from me. It wasn't what you think. I know how it looked, but I swear it didn't mean anything. Claire and I have a history, yes, but it's just that. History. History doesn't excuse disrespect, I shot back. You might not have crossed the line physically, but emotionally you did. Do you know how small you made me feel tonight? Like I didn't matter, like I was invisible. His head dropped, and for a moment I thought I saw genuine remorse. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I never wanted to hurt you. You mean everything to me. I wanted to believe him. I wanted to hold on to the idea of us, the life we had built together. But the trust we once shared now felt fragile, like a thread stretched too thin. Could it ever go back to the way it was? We talked for hours that night, peeling back layers of our relationship we'd both avoided for too long. He admitted to getting caught up in the moment, to letting old habits resurface without thinking about the consequences. I admitted to feeling distant for some time but never voicing it. By the time the sun rose, we hadn't found all the answers. But we had made a decision, to face our issues head-on, whether that meant rebuilding together or going our separate ways. For now, I didn't know what the future held. All I knew was that I deserved respect, honesty, and love. The events of that night had changed something fundamental between us. While painful, it also forced a reckoning, a chance to confront the cracks in our relationship and decide if we could mend them or if it was time to let go.